Hey, how's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Tuesday. It is July 22nd, 2025, 11:30 a.m. California time here. Latest earthquake on the globe shows a 3.0 here across the, just looks like outside of Turkey. Also, some movement there with a 5-pointer coming in around the Philippines. Now, overnight and even this morning, we had some further larger earthquake activity up here across the northern edge here of the Kamchatka Trench. That is off the coast of Russia here. Got quite a bit of movement stirring up out here with a number of decent earthquakes. Now, it does look like maybe they downgraded that 6-pointer there. It was a 6.3 downgrade to a 6.1. Let's see what we got here for the newest magnitude. Couple earthquakes this morning there in the 5 range. 2 5-pointers. Actually, 3 of them. Maybe 4 of them. Quite a bit. Maybe 5 since last night. So a number of 4s and 5s. They did downgrade some of these other magnitudes there that were in the 6 range for some reason. But there's that 6-pointer from yesterday. And again, a number of earthquakes. This brings up the total tally here, specifically in this area, to 143 earthquakes with the main magnitude of a 7.4. Now that is in that major subduction zone here towards the northern end of the Kamchatka Trench. This is a super big subduction zone and accumulates quite a bit of strain here in a short amount of time period. That's why we're always seeing larger earthquake activity out here. Just to give you guys a general impression of the general plate movement of the Pacific Plate. Things are heading off here to the Kamchatka Trench, right here where the arrows are northward, right about here where the tip of the finger is where the current ongoing swarm is. That is, obviously backed up by pressure from the Pacific Plate, the North American Plate pressure from the north, and not to mention the Eurasia Plate here moving off from the northwest in that general fashion there. So we're always seeing a lot of earthquake activity, a lot of strain building up here with a very high accumulated slip rate. Now, back in 1952, this area did see a 9.0 earthquake. Good possibility that we are seeing something very similar unfold here. I want to show you guys real quick. Now look at this. Let's go back over here. I want to show you guys kind of what transpired at first. Right? We had a number of 4s in this area, a couple 5s, and then voila, a big 6.6 hits, right? That was on the 19th. So we thought, well, maybe that's the largest earthquake there. Seen a number of aftershocks there, 5s, even some 4s, and then about 30 minutes later, a 7.4. So maybe that's the main one now. But if you look at all these other earthquakes in the 6 range, we've seen multiple 6s out there, multiple 5s, mini 4s and whatnot. But this here is way too high of a aftershock count in this type of magnitude here. This is very reminiscent of what took place there in 2011. Let me show you guys here real quick. 2011. This is back in March, right? I remember where I was when I heard this. I was at home on the computer here watching everything unfold. Now, okay, so March 8th, 2011, they had a 7.3, very similar, right? And then started seeing that same sequence of events there, 5.7, 5.7, a couple 6s in there, actually mini 6s in there, up until 2 days later when they had a big old 9.1 earthquake. And then, of course, there's going to be lots and lots of 6s, lots and lots of 5s and whatnot, even some 7s in there. There was another 7.9 in that same region. So the energy that is released here from a 9-pointer is so great, it would take 1,000 7-pointers to be the equivalent of a 9.0 earthquake. So it's very eerily similar to what we're seeing here. I know we're past that 2-day period now, but also at the same time, the longer this goes on and continuing to intensify here, the higher possibility that we could see something bigger take place here in terms of large mega quake activity. May not be up around the 9 range. It could. Anywhere along the Kamchatka Trench out here is capable of a 9-pointer. That 9-pointer in 2011 was down here across this area. And that was a big one. Really not too concerned with this area in terms of that type of magnitude, since it's only been, a certain amount of time. But up here, quite a bit of time has passed. Other areas here along the Kamchatka Trench, time has passed as well in terms of megaquake. The last time the megaquake happened out here. So we do have to watch this closely, folks. I mean, I think that's a little bit extraordinarily large aftershock sequence here. That's what leads me to believe that we're going to see something larger here in terms of major pressure release. Just too many aftershocks out there. The latest one shows a 5.1, and I'm sure there's other quakes happening out here. Just the USGS will only show 4.5 and above. Anything below that normally will get reported here on the EMSC model. But that's a lot of earthquake activity. There's our middle point boundary there from yesterday, 5-pointer. That is in between the Alaska earthquake activity and the ongoing swarm here off the coast of Russia. No new activity here to report for now across that region. The Alaska area, there's a 4.8. See, there's still a lot of pressurization going on out here, folks. We're not getting these earthquakes because of everything backing off in terms of pressure. We're getting more and more earthquakes because of intensifying pressure out here. Could you imagine? Earthquakes aren't going to happen because things are just steady and slow. They're going to happen when the plates are continually pressurizing more and more, and as a plate pressurizes more and more in this area, we see elevated earthquake activity. It builds up steam, but in these areas of highly constrained stress like we're seeing up here, they're continuous. And I do think that something bigger is lurking in this area. Not a whole lot happening further down south here. I know there's a couple earthquakes in between the Japan Trench and you got the Nankai Trough right here. I do want to double check that. Let's go over here to the Japan Meteorological Agency. See if any swarm. No swarms going on. I can already tell here because the numbers up here are few and far in between here. It's just an earthquake every few hours or so. So we're not seeing an earthquake swarm like we had seen back, a couple weeks ago when that was swarming like crazy. Not a lot down across Taiwan either. Most of this is into the Philippines and into the crunch zone. This is just very typical for any given day out here. This is nothing of abnormal activity. What is abnormal is up here. There's another 3-pointer coming into Alaska. A lot going on underneath the Pacific plate here. Look at this oddball earthquake out in between Hawaii and the West Coast. That is a little on the odd side. That leads me to believe here that this whole plate is strained. And the question is, where is the major pressure going to release? I do think it's across here. Let me see. USGS not showing that 4.8. See that? It's in a little fracture boundary out there. If you go to the oceanic crust, there's a number of these fracture zones out here. Let me see. Let's go over to the EMSC model real quick and take a look. I want to see if anybody's reviewed this quake, because that is a strange one. Crazy. The parameters here have been provided by the Germany folks. Thanks. So it does look like this has been reviewed, but I'm wondering why the USGS has not reviewed it. Got Russia reviewing it and issued a quake for this, for a 4.8, but nothing here from the USGS. It's a little odd. See what these guys are reporting for historical seismic activity out here. There is some movement out there historically, I guess. I want to look here real quick. I'm going to get away from this area and see what we got out here. Well, I guess that would be somewhere like right out here. And there's really not anything being reported there as far as 4.5 and above goes. But anyway, if that is a indeed legit earthquake out there, it's an interesting one, because I don't recall the last time we've seen something out there like that in those fracture zones with everything else going on out here across the northern edge of the Pacific plate. Definitely a whole bunch of strain out here. There is some movement there across the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone from last night. Look at that one, 14 miles deep. We've been getting a lot of deeper activity here. into this region. Again, these are not fracture earthquakes, otherwise they'd be much shallower, but these are 14 miles deep into the Cascadia megathrust zone, which extends underneath this area to the east. The deeper areas extend, obviously well into the Cascades, underneath the Cascades and the Sierra Nevada mountains. Here, the northern edge, that's why you have volcanoes out here. But there's been a number of deeper quakes here in this area recently, all across the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. So just kind of watching that as well. The Cascadia tremor count was elevated yesterday. I'll show you guys here real quick. Had 257 epicenters of tremor, mainly underneath the central coast here of Oregon, but also a little bit down here across northern California. So as the Juan de Fuca plate here, I'll show you guys, the Juan de Fuca plate as a whole is going to be this plate right here. Now there's quite a bit of different dynamics here that push and move this plate and subductive plate around. But generally, the overall view here is that this plate is being subducted underneath the North American plate. And there's been a lot of, as I mentioned, a lot of tremor activity down here across northern California, as you can see down here. That appears to be straining areas back upstream towards the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone, resulting in earthquake activity here upstream. So obviously, it's still continuing to build some pressure and steam here for the next big mega quake out here. It's very possible we could see just a fracture here, partial rupture, of the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone, resulting in a 8.4. So they do happen, and they happen quite often in between main events. The main event, of course, is a full rupture of the Cascadia, resulting in a 9.0 or greater earthquake. But in between the events, there are main events, which happen between 250 and I think 500 years. We have the partial ruptures that occur out here. And I've said it for a while, I think we could be seeing a partial rupture here soon, just because of all the tremor activity, a lot of earthquake activity here recently, and more so down across the southern end. Some up here, if you look at the coast range of Oregon, that's pretty shallow though. That one's deep though. That's a 1.1, 15 miles into the subduction zone, 9 miles deep. But not a whole lot happening up here where the all that elevated tremor activity is occurring. But this is pretty much the last spot to really fill in. It seems like we get a lot of areas down south, and then up north, creating my new vocabulary out here. All right. And then eventually the center portion fills in. So if that's the case here, things could get interesting. We just had a recent tremor event here back in May and June time period there, with quite a bit of tremor counts being recorded. Let me pull that up, show you guys. Did that cover it all? I think it did. 11,000. No, I think we need to go a little bit further than that, because April wasn't too much. That extended into June. But anyway, you guys get the concept here. There was quite a bit of tremor counts down here, mainly across the southern end, some across the northern end, and we're just starting to fill in now across this blank area. Just like I was saying, it fills in north and south, and then eventually it fills in across the center portion. And once it can't do it anymore, then we rebound and have a big earthquake out here. But the question is, do we have enough out here for a big mega quake in terms of the full rupture? That was 325 years ago. That's a lot of strain that's built up out here, and we're within that interval range. So we do have to watch this closely, and that's that's another good question here. Where'd my let me see if I can find my Cascadia timeline. I normally have an image here. There's a timeline right here. I want to show you guys. Is this the one? Yes, it is. So this is a little interesting article here. I need to bookmark this so I don't have to go searching for it again. This is from Oregon Live. Shows the history here of earthquakes there across the Cascadia subduction zone. They have the average years of 246 years. That's scary because we're past that, way past that. here's our last one back in 1700, 9.0. Now, if you look in between major events here, right, the magnitude is going to be dependent on rupture. And this is a full rupture resulting in a 8.8. And then sometime later, we had a partial rupture. And then resulting in a full rupture, looks like 68 years later from those two events. Interesting. So, I don't think we're going to see a seismic gap such as this between 6,500 and the year 6,000. It's possible, but if you look, the frequency has been increasing here throughout time. Earthquakes are happening more often without huge seismic gaps there. And in between some of these large events, we do have partial ruptures, but I don't know. Maybe we do have enough here for a full rupture out there. That's scary, because that is what will not be good. I mean, even a partial rupture or a full rupture out here is going to be damaging, similar to the 2011 9.1 earthquake out there in Japan, but just out here across the Pacific Northwest. So we do have to watch that. And I definitely am. That's why I try to cover the tremor counts out here. Keep an eye on them. Because really, I believe that the tremor map out here shows us and could potentially help us forecast maybe when the next big one will happen. As the tremor counts are kicking up and getting elevated, that's a sign there that the plate is being further pushed underneath the region. This is tremor that occurs about 35, 45 kilometers deep. So it's not at the locked area, which sits offshore here. But if you think about it, this plate, the Juan de Fuca plate, these tremor counts are a sign that this is still further being pushed underneath the area as the North American plate folds, so to speak. This area is folding. That's why you can see this, these belts out here. They're called the fold and thrust belt. See if I can find it. Cascadia fold and thrust belt. This area is bending, so to speak. If you had a different layout view, a cross-cut section, you would see that this is folding and bending. When it gets to the point of maximum pressurization, it springs and rebounds back up. At least the locked area does. But, it's rising right now because of that folding. The land is out here, but eventually that's going to let go. The land will drop out here across the coast. That's the other bad thing. A number of feet, and then of course the tsunami that will come in. It sounds like a doom and gloom, but that's realistic out here. This is not make believe or science fiction. It's happened many times in the past. Ask any geologist or seismologist. They know that it can happen again. The question is when, and nobody knows. But I wish that we would have had some type of tremor information here from 1700. That way we could see what was happening maybe years prior to that big one. Was it elevated? Did it become completely quiet for an extended time? What took place? Were there just sections showing up here? Who knows? But that's why I always like to watch this. This is very valuable information, because this is a sign here that Juan de Fuca plate is further diving underneath this region, further adding stress and strain across the locked area. That's another region here that's, according to the folks here, we're overdue. We're sitting at 325 years. That's just one of many subduction zones that are well overdue, folks. There's, we've been living in some quiet times out here across the West Coast anyway. That may not be the case for much longer, but we just got to be prepared. Let's see, the rest of Northern California, Bay Area is pretty quiet. Really nothing to take note of there. Southern California as well. This morning a 2.9, well off the coast there of Long Beach. Pretty shallow earthquake out there, but Southern California here has been a little on the quiet side. I mean, obviously we do have some small microquake activity out here, but it's been a little eerily quiet ever since the movement up north and out west here. Up at Mount Rainier, forgot to cover that. Let's go check this out real quick. Couple more earthquakes being recorded there this morning, it looks like, but let's go see what we have from the PNSN network. We'll go over here to the volcanic seismicity map, Mount Rainier. There we go. Make sure I turn off the bells. I'd hate to do 20 minutes over again here, but if I had to, I'd have to. I've done it before, but I try not to make those mistakes all that often there. Number of earthquakes, we're at 898 earthquakes. That's what these guys are reporting. The USGS reporting 900, about 951 earthquakes up there across the summit area. We're up to the current time period here of 722, which would be right here. The counts are dying off, obviously, getting less and less earthquake activity. But man, what a swarm, huh? 900 plus events. That is crazy. Let me see if there's anything on the seismograph station here. These guys have been doing a pretty good job here of reporting even all the smaller quakes. I do like that. But for the ones, that are not located, there's going to be a couple hundred more, such as these very small ones. See, this is right now to 11, almost noon, and they reported 3 of them. They're probably only counting the larger ones here, but there's still many others in between these little small ones that are not locatable, is what they say anyway. But there's still quite a few small ones out there. So we'll continue to watch that. Nothing changed, though, in terms of, any elevated activity. No GPS displacements there as far as inflation goes. Yellowstone National Park up here, still waiting on this site to get fixed here. This, I'm sure quite a few folks do use it. It's called isthisthingon.org. It's normally a really cool layout of the seismograph stations. Let me show you what it used to look like. Right here, right? It'd be it's a cool layout of Yellowstone supervolcano, the caldera there in the black, and other areas locally. And, on this type of view, it gives you a good impression of earthquakes and when they happen out here. Or maybe if certain areas have a little swarm, microquake swarm, which is not being picked up across the area, means that these are very small quakes. But such as this earthquake, for example, that showed up across numerous seismograph stations, indicating that's a legit earthquake. And I don't know what that was. It actually showed up over here. I think it was close to a 3-pointer. But it's offline. The station's there with the University of Utah, and maybe, I don't think I'm doing anything wrong here. When you go over here to their site, got to go back here to the station map. They got many different seismograph stations out here. Let me, for example, check this one around Salt Lake City. I want to see here if they're toned down as well. See, that's the thing. Something's going on with their site. It shouldn't take that long. This is definitely not an upgrade. This is a downgrade if they're doing some type of adjustment. Yellowstone up here. We'll check out. I mean, these should work, but they're not. So, yeah, there's no way it should take this long. It just sits there and spins like it's an open window to my computer. So I don't like that. Definitely weird. What can I do? Let's just hope here that they're actually being transparent in terms of the earthquake activity that is happening out here. They are reporting some of the smaller quakes out there across West Yellowstone, so that's good. Nothing large being reported out there for now. Texas oil fields, same thing, just nothing new out there. Earthquakes, right? 30 days of earthquake activity in this area alone shows 806 earthquakes. Oil fields and earthquakes, yes, they go hand in hand. New Madrid seismic zone from last night, little 2-pointer out around Dexter, Missouri. And also over here across New York area, getting a little swarm going on. Showed you guys this here a day or so ago. What are we up to? 6 earthquakes now? Yeah, this area here is capable of seeing some larger movement. There's a U.S. hazard map, probably about mid-5 range. This is that same area here that had that 4.8 a number of, was it last year or the year before? So maybe a little bit of, I guess if you want to call it aftershock activity, or maybe just increasing pressure out here across the regions. Just nothing big for now, but normally you don't see 6 or 7 earthquakes there in a week time period. There's another earthquake up at Mount Rainier right now in the red circle, little 0.3. All right, let's see what else we got here for worldwide activity. I know New Zealand was popping off a little bit last night with a number of 4s. I don't see any newer activity down here, but that's been super busy down here. The Alpine Fault area definitely needs to be on guard there because a lot of time has passed. I think it was in the year 1700 or so, the last big one that happened out here. So a lot of time has passed for many different regions. Middle America Trench, nothing new. This is very typical on any given day. South America, quite a few earthquakes down there, but this, again, a major subduction zone. And nothing big, just some 3s and 4s. A little bit of activity stirring up here in the Atlantic, the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. That could potentially further escalate the plates out here. This seems like it's where it all starts out here. Once things get going here, it pushes all the plates all over the place and start shuffling them around and building up strain. A little bit of swarming going on out there across the Greece area, it looks like. 4.7 and a 3.7. Nothing big. Do have a little bit of movement off of the plate boundary there. Let's see here. Let me check out Alaska real quick, see if there's any newer movement. A little bit up around the Cook Inlet area, 3-pointer. No new movement here across that subduction zone to the east of the ongoing swarm, which is dying off, but this area over here is increasing. Still got to watch that though. We'll see what happens. It may not be 2 days exactly. It could be up to a week or so. These could all be foreshocks, and we could see a megaquake here, within a week's time period. Just it so happens there in 2011, it was about 2 days there of a similar swarm before we seen the big 9.1 that took place here. Right now, there's just there's that 4.5 from yesterday. But again, I'm really not too concerned with this area. I'm more concerned with the Kamchatka Trench. The Big Island of Hawaii, I know the eruption there is over. I think it ended yesterday, if I remember right. Really haven't covered the Hawaii stuff because it's been so busy with earthquake activity. We will check go up here to the summit cam real quick, take a little look. Volcanic gases out there. It actually looks quite moist out there with these clouds. Well, moisture, condensation there popping up. No signs of an eruption. I don't expect any eruption until we get some further supply and buildup down below. Nothing new. This is the inflation chart past month. Here's our most recent eruption that lasted for a short time. Now we're way down here. Depletion, right? Now we're going back up with inflation. That's what's happened since December. I think we'll be waiting on number 30, right? Episode 30, rinse and repeat. Goodness, I need me a flight ticket out to Hawaii, a couple nights there, and that would be awesome to document, because in this type of setup, you can pretty much guess when it's going to happen as far as the eruption goes, so you can be there in person to film it. Pretty neat. Anyway, I'll have to wait on that, put that on the back burner. Space weather activity real quick. See if we got anything cooking out here on the sun. Not a whole lot. I got some sea flare activity, but things are fairly mellow out here in terms of, solar flare activity. There's coronal hole number 66, scooting on further to the west side here of the sun. Nothing behind that in terms of any further coronal holes. We do have a number of sunspots out here. Quite a few actually, but let's see what we got here for complexity models. This one's dying off like crazy. Same for this one. And same for this one here, getting a clear cut between these two cores. That not a good sign. That means it's going to further degrade. And we're left with, goodness, left with a whole lot of nothingness. I don't see anything out here that's capable of any stronger flaring. So the threat has dropped. 35% chance for M flare. X flare probably should be at 1%, but maybe he hasn't got to it yet. A little sliver of a moon out there, 7%. There is potentially maybe a G1 storm coming up. Looks like maybe tonight here. That's from the high-speed solar wind stream with that coronal hole that was facing us there yesterday and the day before. So just going to be a little quick glance there at some high-speed solar wind stream, but really not expecting much in terms of any dramatic aurora activity. Quick glance here at any close approach asteroids from the NASA website. See if they're working. I hope they are. Make sure I'm working. I'm working. All right, millions of miles. This one's pretty close, though. 210-foot airplane size asteroid, but that's well outside the Earth-Moon distance. Everything else, they're millions of miles away for the those rocks or asteroids. Not a whole lot of severe weather in the forecast for now. We do have a little slight risk up across the Dakotas, and we got some wind, some hail, a little bit of tornado threat there. Main threat looks to be some damaging hail out here associated with those thunderstorms. So, but nothing big in the forecast for now. Just kind of keep an eye here on the earthquake activity. Kind of see what happens here, and we'll go. Probably should keep Alaska right there. These are my seismograph stations here that I monitor quite a bit. We've got Alaska, Anza, that's down there in Southern California. This is up at Mount Rainier. Taiwan, Kagoshima, that's off the Nankai Trough. New Zealand, another Japan station, and then Petrolia there in Northern California. They come offline they go offline for 20 or 30 seconds, and then they come back on. I don't know why it does it, but I've tried everything to fix it. It's what it's doing. A couple more earthquakes down here since I've been doing the update. Actually, 3 of them. 1, 2, 3. Nothing big, just a couple smaller earthquakes there in the red circles. Anyway, we'll watch it today, folks. See what happens. Just got to be prepared. I'll catch you guys out here a little bit later on this evening for the Tuesday night update. Have a good one.